One of the biggest moves that Deion Sanders and Colorado were expected to make was the hiring of Warren Sapp, but the tone's kind of changed, and I don't think it's going to happen anymore.
You are Locked On Buffs, your daily podcast on the Colorado Buffaloes, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome to Locked On Buffs. I am your host, Kevin Borba. Today's episode of Locked On Buffs is brought to you by LinkedIn. These days, every new potential hire can feel like a high-stakes wager for your small business. That's why LinkedIn Jobs helps you find the right people for your team faster and for free. Post your job for free at linkedin.com/lockedoncollege. Terms and conditions apply. We're also brought to you by the Locked On Podcast Network. It's your team every day for free and available wherever you get your podcasts. So thank you for making me your first listen. Warren Sapp, the NFL Hall of Famer, former star for the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, was one of the big additions that Colorado was supposed to make. The entire year, Coach Prime kept saying, you know what? Warren Sapp's going to join the staff. Once he gets his degree, he's going to be on he's going to help coach the defensive line. He's going to help coach the offensive line and teach them what the defensive line is looking for. Warren Sapp was expected to be a huge kind of, I guess, splashy addition for the Buffs to have like another NFL Hall of Famer, because that's something that Coach Prime has really prioritized, as we've seen over the past few hirings or statements he's made about his staff. Is he wants guys that have NFL experience, NFL vibes. To help players get to the NFL level, he feels like they need to have people who have been in and around the NFL to get them there. And so Warren Sapp was someone that he turned to, a former friend. But based on comments made recently by the team and the school, it no longer seems like that's going to happen. So if you don't remember what Coach Prime said about Warren Sapp joining the staff, this is what he said to Rich Eisen in December. To see him go get his diploma, because I know I know what he wants to do. He wants to coach on this staff, and he wants to be a part of the staff, and he's going to be a part of this staff. He's unbelievable. And then he said they love him. Oh my God, they love him. Talking about the players on the team. However, Steve Holbert, I believe I'm saying that right, or Herbert, I'm going to call him Holbert because that's the only way I could say it, who is the director of communications for Colorado, or the spokesman of Colorado, excuse me, was asked about Warren Sapp joining the staff, and he denied that there was any conversations. He says there have been no conversations about hiring Warren Sapp for an assistant coach position at the University of Colorado. And he said this to Brett Schoenbauer of USA Today. Tough last name day for me today. Holbert said that there were no discussions of hiring Sapp in any capacity at this time. And then he also said that Coach Prime will not be making any more comments about Warren Sapp joining the staff, which to me tells me that something occurred. And I can tell you what that something is. So kind of trigger warning for those. We're going to dive into a little bit about his troubled past. Because if you guys didn't know, Warren Sapp did have some issues, some legal issues. And so this is according to the USA Today. They received some letters and worry from organizations that support domestic violence survivors in Colorado, and they raised concern over Sapp's past and what he would, or kind of issues or concerns over Colorado hiring him, excuse me. So this was the statement that they gave to the USA Today. By hiring someone with a history of public allegations of gender-based violence, including domestic violence, they risk promoting violence rather than speaking out against it. And this is in a statement to the USA Today given by Violence Free Colorado. And then the statement continues saying they risk saying that violence is excusable if the player or coach is successful. They risk undermining the public work CU has done to speak out against domestic violence. As advocates, we know the answer is not to ignore the allegations of Mr. Sapp, but to address them head on. So Sapp has, and this is documented in the USA Today article, has multiple allegations made against him. He took a plea deal in 2015 for misdemeanor domestic battery against his girlfriend, where he reportedly or allegedly bit her and threw her on the floor and also stepped on her head. Prior to that, he was fired from his NFL Network role as an analyst because he was arrested on misdemeanor charges for allegedly assaulting and solicitation of a prostitute in Phoenix. He avoided jail time because he took a plea deal. And then he was also included in a lawsuit in 2017 at the NFL Network for allegedly urinating in front of a female stylist and then gifting her erotic toys on Christmas for 3 years in a row, which he said the act was not meant to be like harmful or not meant to be taken any poor way, but he said it had come up in casual conversation between the two parties. And he also went on a radio show in 2017 and said, "What is this? Where's the harassment at? I'm the notorious one. I'm always the bad guy. That's why I'm here. I'm in here today. Ain't no hashtag me too, nothing, no sexual harassment. You're not going to put that on me." And then in 2010, he also had misdemeanor battery charges dropped in Miami um, after he allegedly got into somewhat of an altercation with the woman. But according to the court, the statements and evidence were deemed by the woman, the victim, were deemed inconsistent. So Colorado is obviously seems to kind of trying to be distancing themselves from Warren Sapp. For those of you that didn't know, Colorado has put a major emphasis on raising awareness of domestic violence. They had an issue a few seasons ago when assistant coach Joe Tumpkin, his former girlfriend or the former staffer's girlfriend, went to head coach Mike McIntyre at the time and revealed that Tumpkin had been emotionally and physically abusing her for multiple years. And the head coach reported it to athletic director Rick George, who then reported it to Chancellor Phil DiStefano. But he eventually was able to coach in their Alamo Bowl game, and it was revealed that they went through the wrong channels. Instead, they should have reported to the Office of Institutional Equity and Compliance at the school. But DiStefano was suspended and donated his salary during that time to programs that support students or staffers at Colorado who have dealt with domestic violence. And then McIntyre and Rick George were both donated $100,000 to organizations that offer support to domestic violence survivors. So if Colorado does plan on moving forward in hiring Warren Sapp, which it doesn't really seem like they're going to anymore, according to the USA Today, it also says the organization Violence Free Colorado did invite Deion Sanders to have a dialogue if the head coach does plan on hiring Sapp. And even then, it was never made clear what position Sapp would have because Sal Sunseri's on staff, and at the time they also found a new defensive ends coach. So I don't think Warren Sapp seems to be in the cards for Colorado. I think maybe they'll just keep him around in somewhat of a mentorship role, as he had been doing. Not anyway, but he had kind of shown up a few times and talked to players and helped players out. I just don't think that it makes sense for the program to bring on someone who's had a past where it would cause such an outcry, especially with a program that's had issues in the domestic violence space, where they obviously didn't handle that situation in 2016 well enough. So I don't think Warren Sapp will be on staff. I will keep you guys updated if I see any more further developments. I do think that everyone deserves a second chance. I do think that obviously no domestic violence should be tolerated. So I think it's just best and safest to kind of shelf this and maybe sideline it for a different time and maybe just not go through with it altogether, just because I feel like that'd bring a lot of negative attention, negative press, and just overall bad message to the program, especially when Coach Prime is always talking about the importance of respecting women and valuing women in their lives. So doesn't seem like Coach Warren Sapp will be a coach at Colorado, but I will keep you guys updated on that. This episode of Locked on Buffs is brought to you by our sponsors over at LinkedIn. At the start of the new year, every small business owner is asking themselves the same question. What's the one move that I can make that'll take my business to the next level in 2024? LinkedIn Jobs knows what all your success depends on, or they know that all your success depends on the team you surround yourself with. And that's why LinkedIn Jobs has created the tools that help find the right professionals for your team faster and for free. LinkedIn isn't just another job board. It has a vast network of more than 1 billion professionals, which makes it the best place to hire. Hiring is easy when you have that many quality candidates, so easy that, in fact, 86% of small businesses get a qualified candidate within 24 hours. Here's why small businesses rate LinkedIn Jobs number one in delivering quality hires versus leading competitors. LinkedIn also knows that small businesses are wearing so many hats and might not have the time or resources to hire. Thankfully, with LinkedIn, the process is intuitive, quick, and easy. Post your job for free at linkedin.com/lockedoncollege. That's linkedin.com/lockedoncollege to post your job for free. Terms and conditions apply. I want to thank you guys for making Locked On Buffs your first listen of the day. We're free and available wherever you get your podcasts. So appreciate you guys for liking, subscribing, and joining me along this journey. Right now, we're talking about fashion and football. I'm going to give you my best outfits of the college football season. No, I'm just kidding. Shedeur Sanders and Shilo Sanders had a unique opportunity to partake in the Louis Vuitton fashion show recently as models. They were I don't know what these outfits would be called. They're kind of like a digital camo hunting looking gear, I guess you could say. High end fashion. I'm not someone who knows my way around high end fashion, so I won't even know how to describe it. But they did great. They both had a prime opportunity to walk in the Louis Vuitton men's fall/winter 2024 show. They got to collaborate with Pharrell Williams, the singer. They also got to talk to Quavo. So it was a really cool experience for them. But they're catching a lot of flack because the fashion show led to that in Paris, by the way. So it's not like they were able to just hop on a quick little car and commute to practice or whatever. They missed their first meeting of the season for Colorado, the first team meeting where Coach Prime talked about the rules. He talked about how he wants the players to um, respect women, don't spit on the turf, no smoking or vaping, and of course, not being late to meetings, as we saw last year was a problem with certain players. And I think a lot of people are taking this way out of proportion. NIL is a huge part of college football. They missed one team meeting. Obviously, you don't want to set a precedent if you're Coach Prime that the best players or his sons, in this instance, can miss and do whatever they want. That's not the case. I think realistically, it's also worth noting that his business manager set this up, so he knew about it and he gave them his blessing. So I think it's a really cool opportunity. Not everyone in college football gets this opportunity. We saw Caleb Williams. I forgot what's fashion show. Let's see. Caleb Williams walked in a fashion show um, last year, and it was Hugo Boss, and so everyone was all excited about it. And I think it's kind of one of those things where it depends who you are. I think a lot of people see that the Sanders brothers are missing a team meeting and going to walk in a fashion show, and they're like, "Oh, how self-centered of them." But it's an NIL opportunity. They're going to be back for classes. They're going to be back for winter and all the workouts. They missed one day. Obviously, again, I think everyone knows that they are crucial parts of the team. Everyone knows that they set good examples 99.9% of the time. So realistically, it's a no deal. I think a lot of people are blowing this way out of proportion. Like, oh my gosh, how could they do that? Realistically, this meeting is more so for the new guys. Not to say that it's not important for everyone to be there and that there's double standard, but we all know certain people kind of get to do certain things. If you're the best at what you do, you get more opportunities. If you're the best college football player, you get more endorsement deals, you get more attention, you get more draft buzz. And it kind of just works out that way. I feel like people need to pump the brakes on making this a big deal. It's really not a big deal. If anything, they should be somewhat applauding them for showing that they could do things outside of football. They talked about with Pharrell Williams that they wanted to be multidimensional, and Pharrell Williams kind of gave them a little bit of a mindset adjustment because he said rather than saying you want to be multidimensional, say you already are because you're doing this. You are multidimensional. I think that's a great mindset for young people to have. I think a lot of times we're always told as young people, and I consider myself a young spry 24-year-old. We're always told to be realistic. We're always told to kind of stay in your lane. We're always told to focus on one thing. And so I think it's really cool to see someone as famous, as successful, and as talented as Pharrell Williams kind of shedding light or enlightening these two young football players that they're not just football players, that they're more than athletes. And I think a lot of times we always want to pigeonhole people to certain things, and that's not really what they're doing by doing this, partaking in this. And also, it is worth noting that they are two of the most, or they're viewed as two of the most valuable players in the on3 space or in the NIL space, according to on3. According to on3, Shedeur Sanders is the second most valuable player behind just Bronny James. So the top five is literally Bronny James, Shedeur Sanders, Livy Dunn, who's a gymnast at LSU, Arch Manning, and then Travis Hunter's number 5. And then if you go down a little bit, it is, excuse me, Shilo Sanders. Sorry, I was command Fing on my keyboard so I could find his name. He comes in at number 17. So they're both very highly sought after NIL candidates. They've been in, I think, Google commercials. They've been in KFC commercials. They've done it all. So it's one of those things where it's a great opportunity for them. I don't think this is going to set a precedent. If it became an issue where it's like Shedeur and Shilo are constantly missing meetings or constantly missing practices because they're modeling for Louis Vuitton or they're doing KFC commercials or whatever other endorsement deals that they have another Google commercial and they were constantly missing stuff, then I would be concerned. But they missed one team meeting. There's no practices right now. And those two guys are two of the hardest working players on the team. It's just one of those things where it's like, really, do we need to make a big deal about everything? Don't think so. I don't really care about them missing one meeting. So really shouldn't. If Coach Prime's okay with it, because he's an old school guy. If he's okay with it, I imagine everyone else should just stay in their lane, if you will. This episode of Locked on Buffs is also brought to you by our sponsors over at FanDuel. The NFL regular season is wrapping up, but there's still time to get in on the action with FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. Right now, new customers get $150 in bonus bets guaranteed when you place a $5 bet. That's $150 in bonus bets, win or lose. The app is super easy to use, and there's so many different ways to use it. You can use live same-game parlays, you can find bets in the new Explorers tab, or you can make a parlay in the Parlay Hub, which is the best way to find popular parlays. So visit fanduel.com/lockedon and make your first bet a layup. FanDuel is the official partner of the NFL. This episode of Locked on Buffs is also brought to you by our sponsors over at Chase Medical. I know we come to sports to escape from some of the crazy realities of real life, but can we just talk for a minute about preparing for that real life? According to the FDA, pharmacies are running out of antibiotics like amoxicillin right in the middle of the worst flu season over a decade. I can't imagine a more helpless feeling than if anyone in my family got sick and couldn't have the proper medication they needed because of supply chain issues. Thankfully, we'll be okay because of Jace Medical. The Jace case is a pack of 5 different antibiotics to treat a long list of bacterial illnesses, including UTIs, respiratory infections, skin infections, among others. This stuff can happen to any of us. Visit jacemedical.com and complete your physician encounter. It will be reviewed by a board-certified physician, and your medications will be dispensed by a licensed pharmacy at a fraction of the regular cost. It's never been more important to prepare than today. Go to jacemedical.com and use offer code LOCKEDON to get $20 off your order. Again, go to jacemedical.com and use code LOCKED, capital O, lowercase n, to get $20 off your first order. Welcome back to Locked on Buffs. I appreciate you guys for tuning in and making me your first listen of the day. We got to talk about the staffing changes over at Colorado because there were quite a few of them. I talked about Pat Shurmur being hired yesterday. I think that's the safe pick. I think it's the kind of the safe pick for now, where you just don't want to keep changing things too often. I think you give Pat Shurmur a full year to see what he could do. If it doesn't work out, then you go elsewhere and try to find the perfect offensive coordinator for you. I saw this great article. It's really interesting because it compared Deion Sanders to Nick Saban in the sense that Deion Sanders was willing to play the new era college football game where Nick Saban wasn't. Nick Saban revealed that this past season kind of tuckered him out, and there's just a lot of things in college football that have changed. That have made him not feel like he belongs in the college coaching world anymore. But the one thing that Nick Saban did that Coach Prime has yet to do is find a Steve Sarkisian or Lane Kiffin. So one thing that Nick Saban was always really good at was getting former head coaches or finding the next rising stars on staffs and kind of producing them into the next great head coaches. Now, Coach Prime did help Sean Lewis get a chance at San Diego State, but he didn't find someone that could stick around, and he hasn't really found people that could step in and stay around that have college coaching experience. So anyway, I thought that was really interesting. Really interesting point of view there, but I wanted to go through the coaching changes and who's doing what. So the offensive coordinator slash quarterbacks coach is Pat Shurmur. He took over the play calling duties this past season when Sean Lewis was demoted. It was obviously a very controversial decision, but Pat Shurmur knows the offensive players. He knows their offensive skill sets, and he really knows how to use Shedeur Sanders in the proper ways. They have a new wide receivers coach. It's Jason Phillips, who comes over from Jackson State, or he was. Let me just give you a little breakdown of what he did. So he was at Jackson State in 2021. He was with the Hamilton Tiger Cats this past season, which is in the CFL. And with him taking over the wide receiver coaching position, that moves Brett Bartolone from wide receivers to the tight end room, which obviously Brett is a beloved staffer, and they lost Coach Brewster. Tim Brewster left for Charlotte. New offensive line coach Phil Lodeholt, maybe the addition that most people are excited about. He comes over. He had NFL experience. He has coaching experience at Oklahoma and played for the Minnesota Vikings. And so he comes in with a lot of experience, a lot of wisdom, and kind of a mentality that they need to reset and rebuild this offensive line. Assistant head coach slash running backs coach is Gary Harrell, also known as Coach Flea. He was running backs coach last season. I don't want to say this is like a make or break year for him because they obviously had some running back issues this past season, but I would say it's a position to keep an eye out for. Do the running backs step up with a better offensive line this year? Do they go out and get more coaches? Another returning coach is the cornerbacks coach, Kevin Mathis. Obviously, he's developed Travis Hunter, Cormani McLean, Amarion Cooper, all these guys, and he's going to get a few more secondary members to work with. Then you got linebackers coach Andre Hart, who's, I think, Coach Prime's right-hand man, or at least it seemed like in the documentary. They go back to their days at Trinity Christian, which was where Shedeur and Shilo both played at. So they've obviously have quite the relationship. Defensive end / outside linebackers coach is Vincent Dancy. He was the head coach at Mississippi Valley State from 2018 to 2022. So he was a defensive analyst this past year for Colorado. Really wise young mind in the coaching space, and I think he's going to have a prime opportunity, no pun intended, to kind of burst on the college coaching scene. Defensive coordinator and safety / defensive line coach is TBD. Obviously, Sal Sunseri was kind of supposed to be with the defensive line coach, but not really sure what his role is now, because obviously they were kind of planning on bringing in. They were kind of planning to bring him Warren Sapp in, and then all that stuff happened. It was reported that he was a top target to join Biff Pogge's staff at Charlotte. So it's not really. Let me double check to make sure I'm not putting my foot in my mouth or anything. But yeah, it's really interesting to see where Sal Sunseri goes. I don't know if anything has been put to pen to paper there, unless I totally missed something. But there's still some openings that Coach Prime has kind of alluded to that he will be addressing in the near future. A lot of people reports are saying that it's going to happen in the next week or so. So we'll find out who is filling out the staff for Coach Prime. I think it's a really interesting staffing issue. I think he's going to go to the NFL level, the NFL ranks. I kind of went through the names yesterday. There's a lot of names out there where it's like, I could be that guy, but I don't really know. So we'll just have to wait and see, but I will keep you guys updated every step of the way. I appreciate you guys for tuning in to Locked On Buffs and making me your first listen of the day. Make sure to like, subscribe, follow, give me 5 stars on Spotify, Apple, wherever you get your podcasts. I appreciate you guys for tuning in, and I will see you guys tomorrow.